Can you briefly describe your academic background?
Sure. I am originally a chemist. I started as a chemistry major at Boston University from '01 to '05. Then I did my PhD also in chemistry from '05 to 2010. That was at Harvard. The work that I did there was not really chemistry, though. It was nanofabrication engineering. So I worked on making large areas of small structures, and by large areas I mean like a couple square millimeters of small structures for optical and electronic and optoelectronic applications. Then I did my postdoc from 2010 to 2012 at Stanford in the Department of Chemical Engineering, where I worked on organic electronic devices and flexible solar cells and sort of epidermal skin-like or skin-inspired electronic devices. Not really skin, more than just like rubber. But then in 2012, I started my independent career at UC San Diego in the Department of Nanoengineering, which also runs our chemical engineering program. I've been a member of the material science program since around the same time. So this is I've been here almost 10 years. My research interests include the mechanical properties of semiconducting and conducting polymers. We do a lot of synthetic chemistry. We do some computational modeling. Another project is in the area of wearable sensors, and a third project is in the area of mechanosensation and haptics, and using material science to understand the tactile sense.
How many courses did you teach during the pandemic?
So in the winter of 2020, that was a quarter that started out in person and ended up remote. So I taught two courses that quarter. So I'm going to count those because we had to do remote final exams. I think week 10 was remote, then finals week was remote. Then I taught a freshman honors seminar in Revelle College in the spring on succeeding in scientific research, which was a bit of an interesting topic because no one could really do lab research unless they were doing computation at the time. So that's three. Then I taught intermolecular and surface forces, which is a grad class, and that was online. That was online in the fall of 21. Then I taught Nano 11 Intro to Nano Engineering and Nano 101 together in the winter. So now we're up to 6 courses. Then I taught another Revelle College seminar, so 7. Then the fall of 21 was actually in person, and then the winter of 22 started remote, and that was one more class, so 8 classes. And now this quarter I am not teaching because of my administrative responsibilities in the engineering school. So 8 quarters in total were affected by the pandemic.
How has teaching in an online format changed your approach to teaching?
Teaching in an online format has certainly changed my views about teaching. So even prior to the pandemic, I had recorded all of my course lectures, and I used a flipped classroom methodology. So students would be asked to watch a recorded content before coming to class, and there would be a quiz due before coming to class. That's something that made pandemic era teaching much more natural for the courses that I taught because I was doing a lot of those things already. So the asynchronicity of the flipped classroom style could be preserved pretty well in the class. There were things that that I, from pandemic era learning, that I will definitely take forward in my regular teaching post pandemic, and that is the the even greater use of tools like Canvas to do assignments, to manage the grade book, to do automatic scoring of multiple choice quizzes. That stuff works really well. There was virtually minimal involvement of the TA on the technical side of things in the last quarter, and it was just so much easier to run things that way. A disadvantage of class on Zoom is that you don't get to see the students' reactions to your explanations, and that is a huge detriment. However, you do see everybody's name. So if somebody has their camera on, you can actually associate a name with a face. There are other units, other divisions on campus where having name tags or name placards in front of the student at all times, like in business courses. Sometimes law courses do this, and that really makes it easier to learn students' names and to develop a type of relationship that uses a first name basis is a lot better, I think, for the overall experience of being a student in the class. If you hear your name, it's much more, you feel like you're seen in the class, and you feel a much stronger connection to the course.
In your view, how did remote learning affect student performance and mental health?
There were a number of cases where students had very poor internet connectivity, and their experience of the synchronous portion of the course, so the Zoom lectures, was really retrograde. And there were instances where there were missed exams, missed quizzes that I had to make special accommodations for. There were also there were issues that were not related to the technical aspects of Zoom, but rather the emotional and social aspects of the pandemic and the economic recession that caused a definite uptick in the number of I would say mental health related crises that students experienced, that led to having to meet with them more often, or to create special accommodations for. So that's not really related to Zoom so much, or to online education, as it is to the pandemic itself.
Did you enjoy any aspects of online teaching?
Yes, I did enjoy some aspects of online teaching. I, especially in the first couple quarters, the first few quarters before it got old, I enjoyed having my setup and my iPad and my phone that I would text with the TA on, so I didn't get it mixed up in the Zoom chat. I think at one point I had 11 windows open, and I felt like Tom Cruise in Minority Report, because I had the polling page open, and I would reconfigure the poll in real time. I had the Teams spreadsheet open, where I could see what teams were meeting in which breakout rooms. I had the chat open so I could respond to students in real time, or the TA could respond to students in real time. And there was a level of like immersion that was possible to create because everyone was able to look at multiple windows on their screen, including me. That was kind of exhilarating. And I'm not sure how many of my faculty colleagues like tried to do all this stuff at once. But there were aspects of it that were fun, that I did enjoy, that I think would have been difficult to recreate in a live lecture. Oh yeah, I also want to say I created these fireside chats with students, former students that I assigned as pre-watching. So we had a student who started a nano cosmetics company. So I did an interview with her, and I made that like a Friday special topics lecture. I did an interview with another student who started a graphene company. I did another interview with a former student who was an R&D engineer at Intel, and he talked all about nanoengineering and electronics packaging, and chemical engineering, and I thought that was something that I wouldn't have done without without the normalization of the asynchronous part of classroom education. I think it would have been very difficult there would have been a mental barrier to producing that kind of content otherwise. And I thought that was a nice way to break up the week. So we didn't have a formal lecture on those weeks. And actually, you probably, remember those lectures.
How has going back to in-person instruction changed the relationship between the student body and the faculty?
There are changes to the professor-student relationships now that we've moved back to in person. Some of them are good, like there's a lot of pent-up demand for undergraduate research we've noticed. So applications to our group have, applications to certain programs have increased, like our gear program and the Idea Center has increased. I think applications to our individual research groups have actually decreased by quite a lot. I get far fewer inquiries for undergraduate research positions than I did pre-pandemic, and I'm not sure if that's because the overall level of undergraduate research has decreased on campus because there's not as much institutional memory from the undergraduates who are here now of what it was like to do undergraduate research, so that knowledge is kind of like missing because you had 2.5 years that were affected by the pandemic. The a positive way in which things have changed is that I do tend to get more invitations like this, for example, to meet over Zoom. I think that the type of sort of floating office hour kind of interaction has increased. So people will ask to chat with me about career opportunities, about grad school applications, maybe at a greater rate than they used to. And I think it's because Zoom provides a lower barrier than showing up at a professor's office, and it's like kind of intimidating to do that, and you don't know how to sit or how to make eye contact and stuff like that. So Zoom is a lot easier in that sense. A third thing I would say is that, and this is a very small minority of students, but some students, I think, because it was understood that everyone was kind of in their PJs at work and that a weekday and a weekend didn't really make a difference, didn't affect any boundaries between work life and home life, is that on multiple occasions I got serious email inquiries to like meet them on Zoom on like Saturday or Sunday. And while it is not uncommon for me to do work like grant writing and preparations for lectures on the weekend, it's never really a time where I'm like holding office hours. And so I think on three separate occasions, I got emails saying, could you meet me on Saturday on Zoom to talk about this like aspect of the course? And I had never seen that in 10 years. And I got it like three times during COVID. So there's some kind of like creeping kind of misalignment of boundaries that is new.
How did you respond to students who asked for bizarre meeting times?
Yeah, I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just came back with some times during like normal business hours that that I was available.
Going forward, what aspects of remote learning will you incorporate into your teaching?
So I am at a maybe an unusual point in my career where my teaching load is going to be significantly reduced in the next for the next 3 years. So right now I'm the faculty director of the Idea Engineering Student Center, and I get 1 out of 3 quarters off of teaching. So my department doesn't make me teach in the fourth quarter, which is the summer, and that's pretty typical in engineering. So 3 is the standard teaching load. But starting in July, I'm going to be the associate dean for students in engineering, and I will be down to 1 quarter per year. And it's also coming at a time when I'm going to be redesigning my course, which is remaining, which is going to be Nano 11, the nominally freshman nano engineering intro course. And I'm looking forward to a chance to internalize and use all of the insights that myself and other colleagues have made with the use of technology and the classroom. So I'm reorganizing the notes. I'm going to take a lot of material out, emphasize some other things, and try to make it more like immersive than it ever was before, but also a little less frenetic. And I think the way to do that is to with targeted use of technology, use of video content, possibly interactive texts as well, and more face-to-face interaction, and also more opportunity for for discussion of the big picture of topics, and not just formal course content, if that makes sense.
What were your proudest teaching moments during the pandemic?
My proudest teaching moment during the pandemic is probably a case of being like famous for being famous. I got asked by Chemistry World, or Trend. I got asked by Trends in Chemistry to write an editorial on use of video and active learning in remote teaching, and this was relatively early in the pandemic, and I had never published like an education article before, and it was an honor to be asked. I think they asked me because I had 100 videos on my YouTube channel, but I hadn't really done that much remote teaching by that time. I had, taught 2 weeks of the winter 2020 course, and then I taught a non-technical, like 1-unit seminar the following quarter. So it was probably premature for me to produce that article, but I think I was asked because I had this history of like video production and asynchronous educational tools before the pandemic even happened. So I was proud of what came out of that. That's probably not an answer that you were looking for, but I think some proud moments were when students who I had never met in person gave me comments on CAPE like Professor Lipomi really helped me create my interest in nanoengineering, or stoked my interest in nanoengineering, that I didn't really know what this major was about before I took his class, that he did a good job, given the circumstances, to try to create a unique kind of experience in the course. And I'm proud of all of those moments. It's not a single moment, but they gave me a similar feeling every time that happened.
How has the pandemic affected your work outside of teaching?
I would like to think that the types of okay, let me back up. So my research was heavily impacted by the pandemic. So we do a lot of human subject research, especially in our wearable electronics and haptic medical haptic types of applications. And it was very difficult for a long time, one, to get our own students into the lab, but also to run human subject research, because even if occupancy restrictions were lifted, people didn't want to do like psychology experiments. They didn't want to go indoors and meet with strangers and do this stuff, which, there's a high barrier to doing that even under normal circumstances. And so I wasn't getting any incoming from my grad students in terms of papers to correct and papers to submit. So we wrote a lot of review articles, that will add to whatever legacy I had from the pandemic. But the main thing, I think, was if this could be my legacy, was the creation of molecular podcasting, along with the podcast Ideas in STEM Education. So I created these two podcasts. I learned how to do interviews. I'm not great at doing it, but I enjoy it. It's really hard, as I'm sure you've learned during this process. And this content has, over the course of the pandemic, I have picked up about 10,000 subscribers across all channels, and there are about 170 videos. I have almost 1 million views, and like over 1 million if you take all of the channels. And when I think about the amount of like time that people have put in, it ends up being like 20 or 30,000 hours or something like that, which, according to that Malcolm Gladwell book, is like 3 experts worth of knowledge. And that is definitely something that I would not have done, or did had the pandemic not happened. And I think that it's, if I got like hit by a bus tomorrow, like, I've done enough. Like, there is enough out there for people to like continue to learn from things that I have learned, and hopefully have been able to pass down to younger generations.
Are you still trying to grow your YouTube and podcast audience?
Yeah, I'm a little more. I do try to grow the channels, but I'm a little bit more targeted in what kind of content I produce. And I also try to be a little bit more deliberate in like picking a thumbnail. We have some like theme music now for ideas in STEM ed that my brother-in-law made. I've been working with a member of the Idea Center staff, Sky Lee, who does the video editing. I've been working with Caitlin Wong, who does the art and the graphic design. And so we're trying to make it to like increase the production quality a little bit to try to get a little bit more impact per video or per podcast episode. So yes, definitely still interested in doing that. I'm going to keep those things running. It's probably my most valuable asset as a creative person. Now is the fact that when I release a video, it's possible to get 5,000 views in a relatively short amount of time.
May the fourth be with you.
Yeah, may the fourth be with you. All right. All right, take care. Thank you for the invitation.